We got the brand name of the nasal spray that's got the stuff in. Now we're getting somewhere. Listen, we're only 10 years ahead, and I've only got 4 minutes, so you tell me. I mean, I have topics just bouncing in my brain, but I don't know which ones you want to do.
Okay, I would say that one thing that's going to be happening in the near future, starting within 10 years, computers are going to be playing a much more important part in people's lives. Many of them will be hidden in their automobiles. For example, a 1979 automobile is really a much better deal than one a few years older because the computer can control the engine controls in such a way that you do not have such terrible penalties in fuel consumption and engine longevity and in performance in order to meet the emission requirements. Microwave ovens will have microprocessors in them. Everything will. But in addition to that, there'll be general-purpose computers in the home, and they will act much as TV does now to babysit the children. But it'll be two-way, not one-way. Instead of the kid sitting there passively, the kid will be communicating with the machine.
Well, they have this now in Columbus, the cube system, where they can, primitive, it is now, but that's the idea.
Let me go a little further from
But everyone's going to have them in 10 years.
At Rockefeller University, Adam Reed, who is both a psychologist and an engineer, is pretty well convinced that it is no more than 10 years before he's going to crack the code that's used for information running around in your head. Once he's done that, there is nothing that stops you from teaching your computer to understand you by thinking at it. At that point, literally any question, the answer to which is known or calculable, can be answered by your simply asking it. What does that do to education? Because at that point, most of education is rote learning. You have to learn a lot of information. But if you don't have to learn a lot of information, if you want to know the principal products of Ecuador, you simply think, what are the principal products of Ecuador? And it says straw hats. Panama, you know.
Right. Within 20 to 30 years, you'll be able to remember everything in the Library of Congress as if it was in your own mind.
Do you realize how that is going to revolutionize the learning process?
Well, yeah.
Because up until now, each generation in its allotted lifetime had to teach the next generation everything that had been amassed up until that point before they died off.
Well, that's what separates us from the animals. We're a time-binding organism, in Korzybski's words anyway, in the sense that we can pass on something, which, you know, it's hard for the birds to do that. But pretty soon you can pass it all on. And not only that, you can kind of filter it out and take some of the mistakes out of it too on the way by. Now this is all in our life. We're not talking about anything hundreds of years ago. We're talking about your lifetime.
I would also like to point out that a computer has already passed the Turing Simulation Test. That is, if you have a teletype, and in one room there's a teletype with a human, and in the other room's a computer, and you can't tell whether you're talking via the teletype to the human or the computer's simulating the human being. This has been done by a fellow by the name of Professor Colby with a program called Perry, simulating a paranoid schizophrenic human being. A panel of 25 clinical psychologists and psychiatrists and a panel of 25 computer experts, neither of them could tell who was Perry and who was the real human schizophrenic. And that was done a few years ago, and it's getting better fast.
Now, then the question comes to mind, are computers going to take over and run our lives? There are many people who have that fear. And
no, if you want a computer to run your life, it will run your life. If you don't want it to run your life, it won't. Because, you see, the computer has no will to power built in by evolution. If you program it to take over your life, it will. If you don't program it to take over your life, it could care less what you do with your life.
You see, it doesn't care. That's exactly right.
Not unless
it doesn't care unless you tell it to. Now, if you're crazy enough to tell it to care, then you
look out, Charlie.
Pull the plug.
Or take away its vasopressin. Unless then, you're right. Gentlemen, I'm out of time, but we must do it again.
I'd love to.
Okay, thank you very much, Jerry, and thank you, Durk. It was good to see you again, and Happy New Year to you both. We will continue after these words from our NBC stations.